So Yasir, now every factor loves the pilot, isn't it? So until the time for scaling, huh?
We need statistics. So if you need like 70% failure, yeah, sure.
This is upon our experience, so that it's just like this. So everybody loves pilot. Everybody would like to do pilot, and it's also very essential for the companies to see the value of some technologies because there's a lot of technology outside there.
Yeah.
But especially sometimes the first line runs great, the second line breaks, and then
Yeah.
the innovation became a spreadsheet again. And so this is what we call POC trap, isn't
Yeah.
it?
It's like what McKinsey coined as a term, pilot's purgatory. You are not even passing through. You are not dead, you are not alive, but you are in purgatory. So it's a trap actually. The POC, usually the pilots that we have, is what are we going to achieve? What is the ideal scenario look like? What are we going to learn from it? What are we trying to complete? What the success looks like? Those are not really defined when you're starting. It's like shiny object syndrome. It's a new technology is arrived. Let's test it out. So, what is the end goal? It's every day the innovation orchestrator, the term that we use, they are actually existing. Companies need to innovate. They need to be able to adapt according to customer requirements, follow the technological advancements. When you need to be able to always in the flow as a company. You need to able to like a catalyst in the transformation. You should be able to test it out, implement it, learn from it. It's more like a science and combination of art. What does the company look like? What is the technology solves? And able to combine like an artist, where will it yield the best result for us?
The name is coming from there, the orchestrator, isn't it? So
Yeah.
that he has to orchestrate or she has to orchestrate every part of the company together in order to put them in a road that the innovation will become value, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that the
Yeah.
value is very important because the main question, I think, that what the CFO asked to them, okay, where is the value, huh?
What's in it for us?
Yeah.
What is the payback period? So the common pitfalls that I see for most of the time, it's really hard to tie down what is the ROI of a single initiative, because it's like you have a mixed bowl and you are trying to understand what is the fat that I'm gaining from this avocado or this rice. It's not really that simple. You are gaining on overall calorie. Like for the transformation, it's a stacked solution. Some insights you gain from other implementations, and they are trying to solve that challenge. They need to give a threshold. That's their job. Definitely they need to be able to coordinate what the process looks like, what the technology will solve, what the R&D looks like, what is this finance in terms of different perspectives needs to be aligned. And they need to really understand the core problem. They are trying to propose a new solution, a technological solution, where they believe it will solve the challenge for the company. And at the end of the day, there should be some investments. However, it should also be justified, where if we should accept that there will be failures. If you are not trying anything new, then you are doing everything in a regular fashion. You need to embrace that there will be failures. Some of them won't yield any ROI. Those are experiential learnings. And if the company has no training budget, I don't quote those, but if you have a training budget, you should see some part of the pilot as a training experience as well. You need to accept that there will be some gains and there will be some losses. It's like everyday business. You will have some profits, some losses, but the game is stay the business is staying in the game. For the R&D and innovation, you should be staying in the game. Adapt the technology, because you don't want to wake up in a world where you haven't implemented anything. You don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the muscle memory on how to innovate. You should always train on those. And when the timing is right, when the right technology fits, you should be able to say, okay, let's test it out. We learned this. Most common pitfalls that I see for the pilots is not actually the ROI. They usually struggle when they are trying to scale to other areas because
Mhm.
they think it's a copy paste problem. It's not a copy paste problem. You should have copy the learnings, adapt, and once you hit the critical mass on saying, okay, we covered most complexities that we think of, now let's scale it. But once we saw a good thing, we would like to maximize as quickly as possible without understanding if there will be any roadblocks. The capability that you have in one side is not replicable to other side. You had one solution technologically correct, you solved that. Machinery similar, maybe exactly the same, but the capability that you had in one side is not replicable to the other side. The team was not there to support that transformation, the scaling part.
I can feel that, and I would like to give you an example. Whenever we go to the different, let's say, companies, when it comes to the processes that they do as the same process with other companies, they
Yeah.
always call them, okay, our process is special than the others. And so,
Snowflakes,
well,
yeah.
yeah, it's almost the same thing. That so each line is also manufacturing different than the others, so that it's the same thing almost there.
Yeah.
And so this the responsibilities and the, let's say, core responsibilities of let's say innovation orchestrator is a very stressful job, I think.
Yeah.
That so, whoa, how their a typical daily life is running. So at the first morning, I'm pretty sure that they review the, let's say, pilot dashboards and the records missing data sets. The stress is beginning with the very early in the morning, I think. Huh?
Usually, I have multiple hats in the business as well as the founder. I need to also innovate what market needs, what the organization needs. I have similar responsibilities like an innovation orchestrator. What do we need? Basically, we have a problem that we have identified. Okay, what kind of technological solution that I can solve it? If I don't know any technology, then I cannot propose the recommendation.
Yeah.
So some of the part is definitely technological literacy, the what is being going on that we can implement in those areas.
Vision, you mean? Yeah, very good vision in terms of the digital transformation.
Yeah. And you need to also have a good grasp on what you you need to really transparent to yourself. What are we good at? What are we bad at? What are we missing? So in terms of what are we bad at, if you are penciling out, if you overestimating that we can turn everything, it usually fails. They overestimate things. They underestimate in certain areas, but usually we underestimate how hard it is to get the buy-in from different departments. The money usually can be found either from a different department, or you might say, I will postpone some investment, I will pilot it. You can usually find the money, but you cannot always find the buy-in from different departments. How is it going to solve their problem? What is the core problem, and how the technology is going to change their lives? You need to, it's like you are living in 1930s, electricity is becoming mainstream, and most of the organization are still in late 1800s, where you have uh, fires to open up the different lights in the street, and you are responsible for moving that fire from light to light, light to light. You cannot change their minds by saying there is a better solution. We found electricity. They have no idea what is the art of the possible. They need to be able to first test it out. And one of the organizational struggles that I most commonly see is they cannot fathom what is possible because they are so used to what is working. They have habits, they have standards. That's how they survive, by standardizing things. And that muscle, once you always do the same thing, becomes really, really efficient. And what you are trying to impose as an innovation orchestrator, you are changing the routine that they have. And
You have to,
we are not open to change
yeah,
as a
you
human
have
being.
to, you have to make them believe that the change is always available for business, and you have to change. And
Yeah,
sometimes the people thinks that the things that you bring to you the success will also bring you for more success. So
yeah,
it's not like that. It's just you have to change and change and
yeah,
change. So let's, the big companies, especially from Germany, and say who is also standing there for 250 years, you know that first of all they have also manufacturing some telegraphs and so on,
yeah.
now some electrical equipments, and now they are also producing some digital transformation equipment as well. So the change is on the way, but the people or minds, I'm with you here, because nobody would like to change the let's say the secure safe side
Yeah.
is very good for the people. And so if you would like to stretch them out the secure side, then
We are
especially in the business, huh?
People are creatures of habits.
Yeah.
So we know what is familiar. It feels secure for us. When you are trying to change something, adaptation, it requires a different muscle. But with the technological advancements, the digital transformation, industry 4.0, now we are someone talking 5.0, but the the term success is actually changing. Success is becoming the adaptation.
Of
So
course.
rather than having profit, profit, profit over years, it doesn't work like that. If you can adapt, because even the biggest companies fail, the lifespan of the biggest companies shorten. Like 100 years ago, it was around 6 to 7 years, I believe, for the S&P 500 companies for their life cycle lifespan. Now it's less than 20. The one thing is constant. That is the change. So you need to be able to adapt and create such a muscle where you test, iterate, learn, like from your baby steps. The pilots are your first trying to balance it out, take the first steps. Once you get your core balance, you start to run, you start to walk, you start to run. But the first steps are the really big ones, the hardest ones, because it takes a lot of courage. Since we already have experience what we learned, babies do not have those. That's why most of the time what we see for technological adaptation, the greenfield factories adapt more easily because they didn't see what was historically available. They
Mhm.
start from scratch. They don't have those kind of experiential scars that they have. They say, okay, let's start, let's test it out. It's an organizational challenge mostly for the pilot to scale rather than a money problem or an ROI calculation.
And also, the innovator orchestrator stands just in the middle of all those problems. So that's the daily life for them is always so hard, but they have got some challenges as well.
Yeah.
As far as I know that, first of all, do they, can they also reach the data whenever they want? Can they also succeed with the pilots, not with the pilots, let's say the scaling of the pilots to the company? They I think that they require a lot of information from the different departments, so because they are in the middle of the all of this work, huh?
Basically, the innovation actually does not fail. It never graduates.
Yeah.
You try it out, you solve it some problem, you would like to solve that challenge faster and faster again in the next iteration. It's an iterative process,
Yep.
but most of the time, once you don't have a unified backbone, once you have scattered data, master data management problems, you cannot access all of the data. And what could be tested out in a few weeks usually takes months, and company just plans, okay, how much pilots can we in parallel run in this year? 10, maybe. What happens if you run hundreds? What happens if you have one fifth of the budget and learn five? times, 10 times of what you have tested out. So the actually, I got a quote a few days ago. Uh, Intelligence is the rate that you are learning. So for a corporate intelligence, you need to be able to learn really quickly, iteratively, not the volume that you learn, but in the time frame that you have learned, that determines your corporate intelligence. Thus you need a really small area, a specific problem to solve as much as possible for those, and able to accumulate all of that information and able to solve the next challenge faster and faster. What is their reality, on the other hand? Since they have different systems, they need to go different domain experts. You are merging a really hard position for innovation orchestrator. You need to understand the business, you need to understand the domain, you need to understand the business priorities, you need to understand the data. And as an innovation orchestrator, you are actually conducting all of those different pieces to be able to synchronize and create a symphony. So misalignment most of the time is the problem, because what operation needs versus what management needs wants are in a constant conflict between vision versus resistance. So you need to be able to gain a certain muscle memory where you can say, okay, I know this feeling, I can do it. It's like a discipline
Mhm.
rather than one time urge or lust that you want. "Oh, I want to digital transform. It looks sexy." It doesn't work like that. It requires discipline.
Yeah, yeah, especially. And so it's just like being a real chef in the kitchen to prepare the foods for each department. So, and because of that, so it's very hard. There's a lot of challenges that
Yeah.
an innovation orchestrator faced in the company. They couldn't reach the data. They couldn't also convince some kind of departments, especially that you have discussed with me that there was a great human layer inside the factory as well in order to be convinced. So
For the data, for the big organization, if you can find the right person, it
yeah,
takes a few months to find
yeah,
the right person.
yeah, and so, but like each case there is some kind of root causes of
Yeah,
those, so
patterns.
that,
Yeah.
and because I know you for many years, you always look for the root causes in order to solve a problem. So now maybe we can define here some kind of root causes, like no shared infrastructure for experimentation, because nobody would like to also just jump into the innovation, because this is my experience, by the way. So people would like to watch first what's happening in the factory.
Uh, there are a lot of cases, different patterns, but let's put into three, four main buckets. The infrastructure. You don't have a system, a shared reality between what is on the operations and where the data is usually managed with the IT. So the IT OT convergence, the gap between those departments exists. That is both cultural as an infrastructural problem. The second problem is the data itself is actually never maintained, even though we believe we are transforming how we operate by leveraging the data, turning into transformation across the value chain. It's fragmented, it's never managed, it's never cleaned. So it's a battle to find all of those. In terms of resistance, organizational change, we usually do not communicate really well. What does the pilot look like? We don't get the buy-in first. We don't isolate the problem in a really narrow fashion. Most of the pilots, even though they expect to complete in 1 to 2 months frame, goes into 6 months, 8 months, like a scope creep. So the alignment is another problem. We don't determine what the success looks like for the pilot. What are we going to achieve with that? What does it look like? How can we solve that challenge for you? If we reduce your overall manual input requirements by getting an automated detection system like a camera vision or a sensor, will it solve your problem? Most of the time we focus on the wrong things. It's like uh, most problem that I see, the team needs an antibiotic, but they usually go with the painkiller, so they think it's a good solution. However, it won't solve the problem at the core that they are facing. Manual KPIs, tracking, inconsistent validation, the data problems. So those are the main areas. Organizational challenge, not identifying the problem, aligning on the goals, uh, distributed data, architectural problems, infrastructural problems. All of those are tangled together. So the company cannot actually say it's just one problem. It's like we cannot innovate. Why? It's a combination of the problems. You need to be able to isolate each one of them, and both investing in your infrastructure as well as your human capital. Without human capital, you cannot innovate because the ideas, the problems, how to solve those, there are a lot of tacits, like undocumented knowledge in the corporate, and you are losing really skilled workforce retiring. They have been working in that position for 30 years. They know the problem inside and out. They are not just familiar with the alternatives, how it can be solved. It's like teaching someone in 60 another language. It doesn't come really easy. Well, because there are times when you can learn really, really fast. And once you are in that state, you can adapt that skill. But it's usually the change management, the resistance is the main problem that I see. Money can be found, infrastructure can be maintained, data can be solved. But if you can change people, you will never get the speed that you would like to innovate.
The manufacturing facilities, the factories, actually try to speak with us,
Yeah,
isn't it? So that's true, as you quoted it previously, that data is the new oil,
yeah.
and so that through the data sets or through something different things that they try to speak with us. And what you are quoting just a few seconds ago, that the people who has got the know-how very well, they can understand what the factory is trying to say to them. But there should be a much more easier way in the digital transformation era, because now we have a great reach to the data. We can also structurally get from the machinery and so on, because the IoT is on the place. Some, let's say, new versions of the PLCs and some different devices, just like you mentioned, that the, let's say, recording systems, the cameras, and so the visual systems and so on. No, I think that we need to also organize that data, and also to speak with just not just only with one people
Yeah.
that you said, but all the company, all the people who is requiring this data in order to understand what's happening in my shop floor, what's happening in my company, and so in order to create them some kind of very good strategical decisions, hasn't it?
Yeah, the pilots are there to show you the art of the possible as a learning experience, and you need to be able to take what's the learning look like and able to scale. If it's successful, it yields profits or efficiency for the business, you would like to scale it to other areas. So you need to have like a test beds approach. You need to be able to either create an area. You will say, okay, I will test everything out here, and once it's successful, I will put it into the factories. But where we come in is actually bringing everyone together, not just the data but the organization itself. Because once you have a one shade of truth, you don't start the guesswork. You say, this is where we are going to pilot. Why? Just one question. Why are you going to pilot there? Why are you testing that technology? If you cannot link with the overall strategy to say, or the overall prioritization, the priorities of the company, it doesn't make sense. It's like following the unicorns, the rainbows. It won't yield the fruit. You need to have a clear set of goals before you start the pilot. And that comes actually from the clarity, not just with the data, but also the priorities of the organization as well. There will be conflicting priorities between different departments. There will be trade offs, yes. But what is the most important thing that we can solve? It's like teaching someone who transformed from hunter and gatherers, where they do not have a shelter, they need to constantly have the survivalist instinct. They have transformed into a settled work where they have houses, they are protected, and you are saying the danger is not went went out of the picture. It's still there. You are trying to keep the balance like a paranoid, to always innovate, always standardize. It's just it might cut it out in 50 years ago if you just walk and have all the right things, right management systems, right quality controls, right customer base, supplier base, you could have survived. If you don't adapt, you won't survive because the competition is fierce. We have a lot of leverage right now in the world in terms of capital, in terms of automation, code, technology. We have more workforce in terms of collaboration. We have more content,
Knowledge
more
share.
knowledge. We have those. So anyone, we all have 24 hours. How you execute, how you spend your 24 hours determines your success. If you can leverage the most, if you can utilize the most long leverage, like Archimedes said, if you can give me a really long leverage, I can move the world. It's the same problem. You now there are really long leverages that your competitor is using, and you need to be able to adapt accordingly. So it doesn't cut it out to run the marathon in 4 minutes and 10 seconds anymore. Someone can run under 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to increase your speed to say, okay, I can run it under 4 minutes, because unless I do that, it doesn't matter. He will win. Teams actually can launch, measure, scale pilots without reintegrating systems. So you need to be able to lose the excess, like an overweight organization. You have technical debts. You need to be able to solve those challenges in terms of organizational change, infrastructure problems, and most of the time the energy is spent on the reinventing the wheel rather than having a common ground as a test bed to solve the problems iteratively. We actually had those problems after uh, implementing MaestroHub to a capability building center. There were a lot of use cases that have been completed there, but the fastest one was actually after we initiated to say, okay, we already have the data, what do you need? This. Okay. Do you have the API? Yes. Can connect it? Yes. Test it out. Ready? Yes. Under 2 hours, you can complete a pilot. So, but it requires both the team to know how as well as the infrastructure. If one of them is missing, money does not solve the problem. Money is a leverage. Capital is a leverage.
Yeah,
You can solve
completely.
a lot of problems without that requires capex investment. You can test it out. You can solve the problem. But convincing everyone that this solution works and can be applied to overall organization, that's the different challenge that the technology cannot even solve. So we always talk about the adoption of AI, the limitation of AI. AI cannot be used here because it has these drawbacks, fallbacks. We never talk about the drawbacks of the people, because we are the constraint right now. If the technology that is available today can be implemented without any resistance into the factories, we could double the overall manufacturing GDP within 1 to 2 years. Because we have that many loss in the operation area, they are
Yes.
not performing efficiently, we have unutilized capacity, we can leverage all of those. On the other hand, the technology is there. We know it works. There are a lot of customer base applicable area, but somehow it never goes into production. Or with the new Gen AI studies, like 95% never goes into production because it doesn't have the ROI. We are solving the wrong challenge. There are definitely ROIs for Gen AI applications. If you apply in customer success as a reducing the overall workload, mental workload, preparation, suggestion as a recommendation engine. It reduces. It's never human versus machines. It's human with machines.
Yeah, exactly.
Until that point, it's not a race against humans will be racing against AI. Until that time arrives, the biggest leverage is human in the loop with the machines can actually increase the overall profit, sustainability, whatever you are after, the priorities of the company.
That's exactly like it is. So that
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, the people are that's our nature. Yeah, so that we if something we think that okay it will be functioning better than me, then we call this a danger, and so that it's not at our side but the opposite side. That's what
It's our
the
nature.
Gen AI. If
Yeah.
you are maybe in the future, not just 10 years, 20 years later, it's just that 5 years, 2 years, 3 years later, people has to work with the Gen AI there, and
Yeah.
so that. And also again, if I will take it to the let's say the innovation orchestrator, then they have to also use the Gen AI. That this topic we are going
Yeah,
to.
it's definitely in the tech stack. It will be in the future because it's a large language model. We communicate through language, so it will be in the stack. But it won't be the base of the AGI. And until that time, whatever I have as a resource, I need to be able to utilize it maximum at maximum. So I need to be able to iterate really quickly, learn from it, see what works. Okay, I found something that works, double down on that, test it out, learn again, iterate and iterate. Once you implement such a test bed, both as an infrastructure as a mentality as well, it automatically reduces like 70% of the time that you spend on the pilots. So you're like you already have an aligned team, you already have the data available. You just say, I need this and this, I just need to test it out. You can do it in a few hours, maybe days, and it automatically reduces the overall cost or the risk that you take as a capex investment. Start small. We always say start small.
No.
How small? Usually the pilot's budget that I see is 20k euros. Can it be completed in 5 as a cost? Yes.
If you do it
Yeah.
instead of 10 days in 3 days, then it's obviously yeah, yeah.
Yeah, why not? The pilot scale, the challenge for the scaling part, that's where most of the projects fail. You can actually, once you have this kind of common data layers, the the data that you need is always fresh, that's available. You can also validate the ROI instantaneously. You say, this is the baseline that we start before the implementation of the project, the technology, and this is what we are currently right now. So you can reduce the overall friction on convincing different stakeholders as well. So that is a plus as a side benefit, but you can have a shorter implementation and engineering cost, faster time to value. So the ROI is actually doubled, quadrupled most of the time. And
Obviously.
it automatically allows you to test it out, more solutions, learn iteratively, and able to find out what is working, what's not. As a long term, it turns into a self-sustaining, always in a healthy, stressful way, where you think you will be going out of the business next day, but you know that you are doing something good, able to balance those out, introducing new products, introducing new technology, and the adaptation becomes your core nature rather than standardizing and always following. It should be self-sustaining. Companies cannot survive without innovation, with the technological advancements, with the with the current capital that we have in the world. Someone will disrupt. I don't like this word, but it is the case.
Digital transformation is called as a disruptive
Yeah,
technology, so
yeah.
that we can call
Yeah,
it like that, I
it
think.
will disrupt your position. So it will change the game. There are a lot of uncertainties, and uncertainties, the risks, companies usually paralyze when the investment numbers go up. The, in order to overcome the risk, risk is something that you are not fully aware of. If you can calculate it, if you know the details of the possible outcomes, it's not a risk, it's a calculated uh, version that you are aware. It's a probabilistic detail. If you can reduce the uncertainty, if you can iterate really, really well, if you don't commit that much, it becomes a self-sustaining innovation organism such a way something happens in the market and you adapt, you iterate, okay, we do something this, good, 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 bad, that's what we learn, good, 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 bad, 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 it happens. Operational excellence at the core always focus on the things that will never change. No one will ever want to have a, a longer delivery cycle. Like Bezos says, focus on the things that will never change. Everyone would like to buy it cheaper, more quality, faster. In order to do that, you need to be able to solve the problem in such a way better than your competitors to say, okay, I can implement this technology, test it out, it reduces the overall time to delivery, let's implement it. Always, you will always be competitive. Some technology will outsmart that. Maybe in the first years of transportation, when the planes are more becoming the commercial mainstream, it was cheaper to send with the trucks. But when it became the mainstream, air cargo became more efficient in certain transfers, or uh, the medium of the technology can change, like ship freights, air cargo, road transfer, the trucks. You need to be able to choose between when to use that technology when it benefits the overall company. In order to do that, you need to be aware of what is out there, understand your customers, understand your constraints. It again goes to self-awareness. Innovation comes from awareness. If you don't aware for technological or the pain points or the resistance that you are going to face, you won't be able to implement it.
And so we are telling adapting to technology. So maybe they can, because a lot of company, a lot of manufacturing facilities, they are doing this business for years and they have got their own know-how. But the innovation is something different that they have to also make. So not just adapting some technologies there, but also they can innovate with the, let's say, real single source of truth, orchestrated data layer. Then if they can see their own factory details in that, and with an innovation orchestrator or someone who is taking this responsibility as well, they can even not just adapt the technology, but they can create their own technologies for them as well.
Yeah,
So and also for the people, if I would like to say that when we were working together in the technology center, that there was, I always explained them, okay, this is a disruptive technology. Okay, digital transformation is disrupting a lot of things, and according to a McKinsey research, is that it's over 1 million jobs will be also disrupted. But people are looking only at that area. But at the second page, it's written that 8 million jobs will be created.
yeah,
So that disruptive means not to lose something, but transforming something. And also the innovation orchestrators will transform in the future, I think. Huh?
definitely. The upskilling, like constant change, the upskilling will never end because what you want is a function of what you know, and the data that we accumulate. The I believe it was Eric Schmidt in 2015. He declared that 90% of the overall information that we have created, we created in the last 2 hours, so last 2 years. So immense amount of content is being created. Technological advancement, the next cycle is always decreasing. The pace that we are in also changed the jobs faster than we can adapt. So I have a different take on how many jobs will be created. I don't think that many because the technology will
It could
be
be. I can.
there is excess workforce in the manufacturing right now. That's why I believe the jobs won't be created. Like an excess machinery inventory in the production area. But Definitely the role will evolve as well. Rather than like a project coordinator, investor in innovation orchestrators, they are actually changing the the DNA of the company to be able to say we are adapting, we are always changing, we are guiding like autonomous improvement loops. This is where we need to prioritize. What are the alternative technologies that we can adapt in here? So they steer the technological adaptation, how it will fit into the business itself. At some point, some technologies will change the business model. Until then, you can have a lot of improvements on process innovation, like redesigning your process, redesigning how the decisions are made, improving the efficiency. You are like an intelligence designer. The new role might be, rather than innovation orchestrator, you are designing the intelligence of the company. So it's a learning process.
Yeah.
Definitely, the we are constantly learning, we are constantly adapting, and if you can adapt, you are not successful. If you are not adapting, if you are not starting, the most successful companies, even though they are ahead, they believe someone will come and move their seats, so they need to stay sharp, able to always innovate, be ahead, and it requires certain risks. Definitely, you will invest, you will fail. This is the part of the process. It's not right or wrong. It's a dual, like flip, the two faces of the coin. Once you have success, what you call as profit today, you also have losses. So the business is not one completely isolated from the other. It always have two faces. As the innovation, it's still the same. You will learn something, you will fail in some areas, and that will actually, the failure is the failure happens if you stop there. If you do not go from, okay, we tried something and we don't want to try it anymore. That's the biggest failure. Not trying is the biggest failure that you can have. If the adaptation, constantly trying new things and changing the way you work is the success, not changing your way, not changing anything, not trying is the opposite of success. So that's the failure.
That's the most common problem that we face during our
Hopefully,
visits.
hopefully, some companies will overcome it. But uh, to be frank, I believe there will, throughout the life cycle of the history, it repeats itself because humans do not change. We have the same failure modes, same drivers. There will be a lot of losses for the manufacturers who are not adapting, who are not innovating, who are not trying new things. They will be out of the game. Their legacy can yield a few years success more if they have a monopoly, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a decade, but you should never ever just lean back and like inheritance money. If you are not working on it, if you are not generating any more on top of it, even the biggest inheritance loses. So it's a one-way street. You have to repeat, you have to learn, you have to adapt, and it requires a lot of discipline. The first pilots are the hardest one. After you put one or two reps, it becomes really easy. Uh, so my take is always try, be aware of the technological advancements, and most of your job is not following the technology but understand business and people. So people at scores.
And bring them together, you mean? So that, so yeah, and also for that you need to learn from the past experiences, and if you do not fail in some experiences, then you cannot learn anything that you have to improve that. And also, it's just like not the innovation, it's not just like data, it's the culture,
Yeah,
isn't it? So
yeah,
that
it's
if you will build a culture in terms of the innovation, then it will become easily to penetrate in the company's vessels. And so that the thing that we also are talking about is that the culture.
yeah. The most digitally advanced companies, their most of the joke, inside joke, their CTO is like most of the legacy companies. Their CTO is like more CTO because we can't do that. We don't do that. It's a cybersecurity risk. In the most digitally advanced companies, it's IT has one motto: everything can be done, and it's our job to make it secure. So compliant. They have, for example, in Tesla, they have just one rule: you cannot say no for the IT team. You cannot say no. If they want to do something, you are an enabler. You need to be able to help them and always trying new things. Not all of the projects succeed. There are hundreds of teams working in Tesla. They are trying constantly new things. Not all of them bears fruit, and they're okay with it because, like you said, culture comes from repetition, habits, and if your daily routine looks like trying new things, trying new experiences, that becomes your lifestyle. That's how your company will survive. You need to be able to try new things, learn from those, be wiser. It's not short term. What I see is most of the companies, maybe for today's world, why are not scaling? What is your unique take? I would say most of the companies that I see is actually they do not have a shortage of talent. They do not have a shortage of money. They might have shortage of transformational leadership, but that's another subject. Most of the time, what I see is the companies are actually is their way of working, their different macroeconomic details. I won't go into those details, but again, some highlights. You have reducing profit margin, high competition, changing market demands, constantly technological advancements. The business becomes more and more hard to build, grow. The unique take that I have is most of the leaders lost their long-term sight for the short-term gains. The business, the game of the business, is staying in the game. Your rivals, your competitors will change. Your rules of the game will change. It's an infinite game. The business in itself is an infinite game, but most of the leaders are playing a finite game. It's not whoever makes the most pilots, it's not whoever makes the most profit per year. It's the one who lives longer. In order to live longer, like the human survival, you need to be able to adapt what is changing. And what I see most for the most of the companies is they are not changing that fast. And it's not they have technological problems, yes, technical debt, but most of the time it's the culture.
Get it? Let's say that it's in the game.
It's in
And
the game.
and also close this podcast session with you. It was an honor and very, very
Yeah,
well.
thank
And
you.
so thank you very much. And
Thank you.
speaking with you was very, very good. So then let's see at another episode together if we can discover more about data and the digital transformation. See you.